Before I tell you what happened the next morning, let me take you back to the night I met him. That night, I was just a broke waitress, and he looked even worse off. But I had no idea who he really was, or what kind of miracle was about to walk into my life. It was a rainy Tuesday evening in a forgotten corner of Kansas. The kind of night where even the wind seemed tired. Ella, a young woman with tired eyes and calloused hands, stood behind the greasy counter of Duke's Diner, a 24-hour pit stop for weary truckers, traveling families, and the occasional drifter. Her shift was nearly over, and her tips barely scraped $12. Rent was due in 2 days, and she still hadn't figured out how she'd pay it. But like always, she wore her smile like armor. A fake smile, but a strong one. Then he walked in. Wet to the bone, clothes clinging to his skinny frame, the young man couldn't have been older than 22. His brown hoodie was torn at the sleeve. He took hesitant steps toward the back booth, glancing around like he expected someone to tell him to leave. No one did. Ella noticed right away. Something about his hollow eyes spoke to a pain she understood. The pain of carrying too much alone. She approached him gently, her pad ready. "Can I get you anything, sweetheart?" she asked softly. He hesitated. "Just water, please." Ella smiled again, this time real. "On the house," she whispered, walking to fetch it. He sat there for 20 minutes, just sipping water, hands trembling like he hadn't eaten in days. Ella watched. Her feet ached. Her mind raced. But her heart wouldn't let her ignore him. She came back to him with a plate, grilled cheese and fries. Simple. Warm. Safe. He looked up in disbelief. I didn't order anything." "I know," she said. "You look like you need it." He shook his head. "I don't have any money." She smiled. "That's okay. Sometimes you give just to give." The young man's eyes filled. "Why?" he asked. "Why would you help a stranger?" Ella leaned down, speaking low so no one else would hear. "Because I've been that stranger." The next morning, everything changed. When Ella returned to the diner the next morning for her double shift, she expected the usual, a broken coffee machine, yelling from Duke the manager, and empty tip jars. But instead, the parking lot was full. Not with cars. With military jeeps. At first, she thought there was an accident or maybe a training exercise. But then, a line began to form, of uniformed soldiers, clean-cut and solemn-faced. Not 5 or 10. 300. All lined up, waiting. Ella froze. Her heart thundered. Then a familiar voice rang out from the front of the line. "Miss Ella?" She looked up. It was him. But he wasn't in a torn hoodie anymore. He was standing tall, dressed in crisp military uniform, medals gleaming on his chest. "I'm Second Lieutenant Brandon Chase," he said proudly, stepping forward. "And I was the hungry kid you fed last night. What you didn't know, was I had just come back stateside. I'd gone AWOL, struggling with PTSD. I was planning on disappearing." A gasp escaped Ella's lips. "But that sandwich," he continued. "That tiny act of kindness? It reminded me that there's still good people in this world. You saved me." Tears welled in her eyes. "And when I told my unit what you did, they wanted to thank you themselves. So, here we are." Ella couldn't speak. Her knees wobbled. The crowd of soldiers saluted her in perfect unison. And in that moment, her world, her small, hard, worn-out world, exploded with grace. End of chapter 1. They came for breakfast, but what they left behind changed my life forever. Ella stood motionless, her apron trembling in the summer breeze. The sound of boots against concrete echoed across the parking lot like a heartbeat that didn't know how to slow down. 300 soldiers. All standing, all saluting her. It didn't feel real. Lieutenant Brandon Chase approached slowly, extending something toward her. It was a letter, creased at the edges, with an official Army seal. "I want you to read this," he said softly. "But maybe, not just yet. There's something else we want to do first." Brandon turned to his unit, nodded once, and then stepped back. And suddenly, they moved. Like clockwork, the line broke into motion, each soldier stepping forward, one by one, to hand her something. A rose. A note. A badge. A handshake. Some hugged her like she was their mother. Some simply said, "Thank you." Some cried. She didn't understand why, until Brandon explained. These men, many of them were one step away from giving up. From ending it all. But when I told them about you, about the woman who gave a meal without asking for anything in return, they felt hope again. One soldier stepped forward. "Ma'am, I lost my wife last year. I hadn't smiled since. You reminded me people still care." Another whispered, "You fed one. But you healed many." Ella's heart shattered and rebuilt itself over and over with every word. She had spent years feeling invisible, forgotten in the corner of a greasy diner, scraping tips, fighting through double shifts. But today, strangers treated her like she was someone. Like she mattered. The news spreads like wildfire. Later that afternoon, a local reporter showed up. By evening, her story was on every news channel in the state. By morning, it was national. The $12 sandwich that saved a soldier. Waitress's kindness inspires 300 troops to honor her. The dollar menu miracle. She woke up to hundreds of messages, interview requests, donation offers. Strangers called the diner non-stop. Veterans drove for hours just to shake her hand. Some wanted to give her money. Some just wanted to say, "Thank you," and cry in her arms. But Ella, she stayed humble. She kept showing up for her shift, apron tied, hair messy, hands still a little shaky from the attention. Then came the letter. Late one night, when the cameras were gone and the diner had closed early due to the rush, Ella sat in her tiny apartment and opened the letter Brandon had given her. Inside were three things. 1. A handwritten note. "Dear Ella. I went looking for an escape that night, and I found a reason to stay alive. You gave me food, but more importantly, you gave me dignity. I never forgot that. With this, I hope to return a piece of what you gave me. Forever grateful. Brandon." 2. A bank check. Not just any check. One for $50,000. Enough to pay off her debts, fix her car, and finally breathe. 3. A folded piece of paper. A certificate of honor, signed by the Army General himself, naming her an honorary veteran support ally, a rare title only given to civilians who made a difference. She clutched the letter to her chest and wept. Not for the money. Not even for the attention. But for the feeling of finally being seen. Life changed overnight, but Ella stayed Ella. She